ultimately, when you look at the studies on longevity, the key thing that they find with centenarians and people that are living healthy lifespans without chronic illness is that they have resiliency. And resiliency could be like, temperature resiliency, they could be immune resiliency, blood sugar resiliency, cognitive resiliency, physical exercise resiliency. And resiliency can easily translate to how effective the mitochondria is in those systems. And even though the mitochondria gets, focused in as the energy powerhouse of the cell and it makes energy, but it is a cell signaling unit. I mean, the mitochondria does trigger the initial stress response. The mitochondria does initiate through different proteins, normal immune activation for an infection, and it generates heme to produce hemoglobin. I mean, it's like what we need to recover. And, in a clinical setting, you can even go down to say, not only just longevity mechanisms of aging, but a person's ability to recover is like directly related to the fitness of their mitochondrial systems. So if you have, let's say, three different people, I'll just say two different people. Say one person had a traumatic brain injury, one person has a chronic viral infection. Let's say both people have the same things. One, like an example of a traumatic brain injury for both people. Well, the one that has greater mitochondrial efficiency is probably going to recover faster. If someone has a viral infection, the one has probably greater mitochondrial integrity is going to recover faster. So whatever this condition is, and our ability to heal ourselves, homeostasis, is all energy dependent. So, if you look at any, if someone looks at any biochemical pathway and sees all those diagrams and charts, like that all runs on ATP. And then the mitochondria we have are directly impacted by the things we do in our life. So, we have to be able to make mitochondrial biogenesis. That requires activation. You have to be able to clear mitochondria, mitophagy, and things like lack of sleep or overeating or hormone inefficiencies. All these things can impact how we clear out these different hormones. These mitochondrial proteins and structures. So it's one of those things where, as a clinician, the biggest clue for us is they come in and they say they have fatigue, and then we're like, okay, the mitochondrial system is inefficient, and then the question is, well, what kind of fatigue do you have? And then, the next question is, what do you do? And ultimately, when we look at the mitochondria from a clinical perspective, the mitochondria has needs. The mitochondria has to have glucose, right? Or ketones, one or the other. But let's just stay with glucose for now. But if it has glucose, and then, it's what it needs the substrate to run its processes. If someone gets fatigued after meals or gets shaken lightheaded between meals, we already know a mechanism where the mitochondria can't function. The mitochondria needs oxygen. So if someone has asthma and we hear wheezing and they have some allergies that are upper respiratory, we know their mitochondria is going to be inefficient. Someone has anemia and they can't carry oxygen to the mitochondria, we already know there's not going to be a chance for recovery. In the clinical setting, we have like deal breakers, like there's no way they're going to be able to recover because their mitochondria isn't able to produce ATP and get those things to work. We know the mitochondria is extremely sensitive to free radicals, oxidative stress. So like chemical loads, things that create the inflammatory response, depletion of antioxidants, those things all cause the mitochondria to fail. So what we're trying to do in a clinical setting is start to dissect that what's the cause of their fatigue, how many mechanisms they have that are causing their expression of fatigue, because fatigue is basically a clinical window of mitochondrial efficiency. So, people that have great mitochondrial function are the ones that aren't tired, the ones that can recover quickly from workouts. So when we hear things like, I can't focus for a period of time, or I can't work out like I used to, or I can't recover from my workouts, those are a clue to us that their mitochondrial systems are inefficient. And typically, it starts with loss of endurance first. So it'll be like, I can't run like I used to, right? And that's muscular mitochondria. I can't read as many chapters as I used to. I can only read like 3 pages a night fatigue. That's brain mitochondria. So whatever system we're looking at, what we'll see is the mitochondria fails is fatigue is like endurance issues first, and then it gets into progressed fatigue. And the way I kind of look at my patient population is when they tell me they have fatigue, is what are the other things that may be red flags of what the mitochondria needs that we need to find? Do they have intermittent fatigue? Do they have fatigue all the time? Or is it debilitating fatigue? And debilitating fatigue, we're worried about things like cancer, malignancy, autoimmunity to the mitochondria, which we see with people that have, like the so-called chronic fatigue patterns and things like that. But that's kind of the thought process.